For years. No, for decades. Filipinos have been the steady hands behind Saudi Arabia's most powerful families, industries, and institutions. They've worked quietly, with heart, commitment, and a sense of duty that's hard to match. But recently, something happened that nobody saw coming. A rare public statement from the Saudi royal family has just sent a ripple through the Philippines. And not the kind you forget overnight. This wasn't just a nod of respect. This wasn't just thank you. No, this was something deeper. Something that speaks to the soul of a relationship built over generations. What did they say? And why is it rewriting everything we thought we knew? Stick around, because once you hear it, you'll never look at this connection the same way again. Let me ask you something. Who do you think Saudi princes trust the most? Is it their royal cousins? Their billionaire business partners? The lifelong aides who have stood by them for years? Surprisingly, no. When it comes to serious trust, the kind that could save a life or protect a kingdom, they turn to someone else entirely. Filipinos. Sounds unbelievable, right? Picture this. One of the richest, most powerful monarchies on earth, built on oil and gold, entrusting their deepest personal matters to people from a tiny island nation, halfway across the globe. And no, this isn't just about jobs or service. It's not about convenience. This goes way beyond that. This bond wasn't built on paychecks or clocking in and out. It was built on something rare, something real. A human connection so strong, it cuts across language, borders, and beliefs. Yet most people don't even realize what's happening. They see the palaces, the Rolls Royces, the sparkling cities, but they miss the human story underneath it all. And once you understand that story, it flips the entire narrative. So let's rewind a bit. Picture Saudi Arabia. Endless deserts, towering wealth, tradition wrapped in modern excess. Now picture the Philippines. A place of deep warmth, resilience, and an uncanny ability to turn any challenge into strength. On the surface, these places couldn't be more different. But when Filipino workers began arriving in the kingdom, something clicked. This wasn't just about hiring help. Saudi royals were gaining confidence, caregivers, people who, over time, became like family. And why? Because Filipinos bring something no paycheck can buy. Something you won't find in a job description. It's called malasakit. There's no exact English word for it, but if we had to try, it's that deep, heartfelt care that goes beyond duty. It's showing up, not because you have to, but because you truly want to. And in a place where trust is worth more than oil, that kind of loyalty, that's priceless. You might be thinking, okay, they're good at their jobs. So what? But trust me, this goes way deeper. In Saudi culture, trust isn't just important, it's sacred. And once you see how that trust is earned, everything else starts to make perfect sense. Loyalty isn't something you can buy. It's not given freely. It's earned, tested, and proven, time and time again. And Filipinos, they didn't just work hard, they showed up in ways no one ever expected. You'll hear stories, real stories, of Filipino nurses staying by a royal's bedside long after their shift ended. Not because it was required, but because they wanted to. Of nannies who raised Saudi princes and princesses like they were their own flesh and blood. Teaching them their first words, calming their cries, being that gentle, steady presence every child needs. Of chefs, drivers, and housekeepers who were welcomed into the most private corners of royal homes and never once broke that sacred trust. Now that's priceless. It's not just what they do, it's how they do it. That warmth, that emotional intelligence, the almost magical ability to walk into a room and just know what's needed, whether it's silence, comfort, or simply being there. That's not something you can teach in a manual. It's deeper. It's real. And no, you can't fake it. You either have it or you don't. And Filipinos, they've got it in abundance. Let's talk adaptability for a second. Because if there's one thing Filipinos have mastered, it's fitting in without fading away. Many grew up with deep respect for Islamic traditions, especially those from Mindanao, where the Muslim population is strong. So by the time they arrive in Saudi Arabia, they already understand the culture. They walk with respect. They carry themselves with dignity. They know how to honor customs that mean everything in this part of the world. That made them stand out, way out. They weren't just there to earn a living. They became part of something bigger. And guess what? The Saudis noticed. It didn't take long before word spread. Filipino workers weren't just good. They were the best. Families didn't just hire them. They requested them. And soon, if you were a Saudi royal looking for someone to trust with your children, your household, or even your private affairs, there was only one answer. But here's where things get even more incredible. That trust didn't stop with domestic staff. It grew fast. Filipinos started becoming the top picks in medicine, engineering, aviation, you name it. Ever wonder why Filipino nurses, mechanics, and skilled professionals dominate in the Middle East? It's not a coincidence, it's demand. And the more they were trusted, the stronger the bond grew between these two nations. The Philippines became one of the top sources of overseas workers for Saudi Arabia. And in return, those workers sent money back home. Money that became the lifeline for countless Filipino families. A partnership built not just on economy, but on something much rarer in the world: real respect. And that's the part nobody talks about enough. If it was just about labor, the Saudis could have chosen anyone. There's no shortage of people around the world willing to work hard. So why Filipinos? Because what sets them apart can't be listed on a resume. It's in the way they show up every single day in a country far from home, yet somehow manage to create a sense of family, a feeling of home, wherever they are. That's rare. And Saudi Arabia saw it. Of course, it hasn't all been perfect. There have been rough moments, challenges, even controversies. But through all of it, one thing never changed: the trust. Because when it matters most, when it's about life, family, legacy, who do you count on? Not the one with the fanciest title, not the one with the best paper credentials. You trust the one who's proven, again and again, that they'll stand by you when it really counts. And that's why, in a world where power shifts like desert sands, one thing stays rock solid. If you want loyalty, dedication, and a heart that puts people first, you call a Filipino. That's just how it is. By the late 1970s, something remarkable had happened. Filipinos in Saudi Arabia weren't just workers anymore. They had become part of the family, woven into the very fabric of society. Trusted not just to fill roles, but to build relationships that would last for generations. At first, it was all word of mouth. One Saudi family would tell another, "Get a Filipino worker. They won't let you down." And just like that, demand skyrocketed. Not because of flashy recruitment agencies, not because of government programs, but because people saw the consistency. Filipinos didn't just do a job, they owned it. By the time the 1980s rolled around, hiring a Filipino wasn't just a preference. It was the gold standard, and these weren't short-term contracts either. Some stayed with the same families for decades. Imagine that, crossing oceans, leaving your own children behind, dedicating your life to someone else's home. That's not just hard work. That's loyalty on a level most people couldn't even imagine. And then there are the stories, like the Saudi prince whose health began to fail. He had access to the best doctors money could buy. But there was only one person he trusted to be by his side: his personal nurse, a Filipina. Doctors came and went, specialists flew in and out. But she never left. When he had to fly overseas for treatment, his instructions were clear. No one else can take her place. And it wasn't just about medical expertise. It was about trust, the kind of trust that goes beyond a contract, beyond a salary, the kind that comes from knowing that someone genuinely cares. And this wasn't an isolated case. Story after story. Filipino workers who arrived as employees but became something more. The ones who raised royal children, who turned mansions into homes, who were trusted with secrets, with wealth, with the care of future kings and queens. Take the young housemaid who started working for a royal family before she was even out of her teens. Years passed. She became a fixture in that household. The children didn't just recognize her. They relied on her, confided in her, trusted her more than some of their own relatives. And when the princess she helped raise got married, she made one heartfelt request. She comes with me, not as a servant, as family. That's the kind of bond we're talking about. Because yes, plenty of people can follow instructions and collect a paycheck, but Filipinos bring something different. They bring soul. They bring warmth. They bring an ability to make people feel safe, cared for, seen. And that can't be bought. Now, you'd think with all this admiration, everything would be perfect. But life isn't a fairy tale. There were struggles. There were nights when the work was too much. Days when the homesickness hit like a wave. Not every employer was kind. Not every story ended in gratitude. But here's the thing about Filipinos. They don't break easily. Even when faced with injustice or exhaustion, they held on. They adapted. They pushed forward, not just for themselves, but for the families waiting back home. Because when a Filipino leaves home, they carry two things, hope and duty. And no matter the hardship, they always find a way to bring light, even in the darkest rooms. That's why you'll find them everywhere in Saudi Arabia. In hospitals, in schools, in companies, in royal estates. Trusted with responsibilities others wouldn't dare take on. Handling accounts, managing operations, caring for elderly royals, running entire departments, entrusted with the kind of duties that go far beyond the job description. And decade after decade, that trust has never wavered. Why? Because an entire generation of Saudis grew up with Filipinos by their side. They weren't just witnesses to trust. They lived it.